Boy, so we've got this tragic story. A grieving mother, and a lot of unanswered questions surrounding the death of 16-year-old Kalea Jones. She collapsed at Menchville High School, and now her mother is suing, claiming the school could and should have done more to save her daughter.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into excerpts from the lawsuit, trying to piece together what happened and what it means for you. Because this case brings up some difficult but important questions about school safety and the responsibility adults have to protect kids, even in those high-pressure emergency situations.
Yeah. What's fascinating about these legal documents, right, is that we get a very detailed timeline, the step-by-step. If one-sided account of how the events unfolded.
Right.
It's not just headlines. It's down to the minute details, which in this case are really what this whole lawsuit hinges on.
Right. So it all starts on February 20th. Kalea collapses in a hallway at Menchville High. Imagine you're a student, maybe just trying to get to class, and you see this happening. It's chaotic. It's scary. And according to the lawsuit, school officials are notified immediately. They're alerted by radio. They know something serious is happening.
They're at the scene quickly, but then this is where the lawsuit really starts building its case. Things get murky.
Cool.
9 minutes.
Wow.
9 full minutes, they say, with school officials present, but allegedly not giving Kalea adequate medical help.
9 minutes. It's hard to even fathom. I mean, what could they have been doing all that time? The lawsuit claims no CPR, nothing, for 9 minutes. And they allege that no one even went to get an AED, which is that device that can shock the heart back into a normal rhythm.
Right.
This is huge because they're saying the school had 3 of them.
And to make matters even more troubling, the lawsuit states that the school resource officer, who you would assume has some medical training,
Right.
started CPR, but for a grand total of 17 seconds.
Oh my God. 17 seconds. Can you believe that? That's barely enough time to even...
It's just heartbreaking to imagine those lost minutes, especially with a condition like bradycardia, which Kalea's mother says the school knew about.
Right.
We're talking about a slower than normal heart rate, a condition where every second really does count.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Kalea's mother says they had documentation about her recent surgery. So they knew she might be more vulnerable. So the question becomes, if they knew all this, why didn't they act faster?
And this is where that alleged video footage comes into play.
Okay.
The lawsuit claims there's footage of a pulse check being done, but then it describes water being splashed on Kalea,
What?
water, and officials shaking her or stroking her shoulders. Like this is some kind of fainting spell, not a life or death medical emergency, which, as you can imagine, would be wholly inadequate responses. It's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing more? And the lawsuit doesn't stop there. They claim the footage even shows school officials huddling over Kalea. It paints this picture of a lot of people standing around, but no one taking charge, no one taking decisive action when it mattered most.
And then there's the issue of the AED. The lawsuit is very specific about this, saying it wasn't used for a critical 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're Kalea's mom and you learned that a potentially life-saving device was right there in the school and wasn't used for 10 minutes.
Right.
It just adds another layer to those feelings of what if?
Right.
What if they acted sooner? What if they'd had proper training?
This is where the lawsuit's narrative starts to shift a bit, and they start implying a potential cover-up.
The lawsuit alleges that the school's own notes about what happened that day,
Okay.
they don't match up with the video footage. Like they're 2 different versions of the same event.
Right.
They're claiming the notes falsely suggest that CPR was started right away
Okay.
and continued until the paramedics arrived.
Wait, so they're saying there's a chance the school tried to change the story. That's a whole other level of disturbing.
Right.
If that's true, it really makes you wonder what else they might not be telling us.
Right. And that brings us to the crux of the lawsuit's argument.
Okay.
They're alleging negligence.
Okay.
Now, to be clear, when we say negligence in a legal context,
Right.
it means more than just making a mistake.
Right.
They're arguing that the school had a duty to act reasonably to protect Kalea,
Right.
and they failed to do so,
Yeah.
and that this failure directly led to her death.
Right.
That's the bar they have to clear in court.
Which is a high bar, but then again, we're talking about a young girl's life.
Right.
And speaking of seeking justice, the lawsuit doesn't just stop at demanding answers. It also puts a price tag on Kalea's life. A staggering $85 million.
It's a huge sum, no doubt.
Yeah.
And regardless of how this case ultimately shakes out,
Right.
That number really underscores the gravity of what happened,
Right.
the profound loss that Kalea's family has experienced, and it highlights the fact that this case isn't just about one tragic event.
Right.
It's about those bigger questions we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Are schools truly equipped to handle these kinds of emergencies? Are they doing enough to train staff, to have clear protocols in place to ensure that when every second counts, they're prepared to act swiftly and decisively?
It makes you think, doesn't it, about what more we as a society can do to prevent tragedies like this?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, it could happen anywhere.
And this is where the involvement of Ben Crump, the family's lawyer, adds another layer to this story.
Okay.
This is a high-profile civil rights attorney,
Right.
someone who's known for taking on cases involving police brutality, wrongful death,
Right.
cases that often demand systemic change, not just individual accountability.
So it's not just about getting justice for Kalea, it's about trying to prevent this from happening to another family, another student.
Exactly, and you can see that reflected in Crump's own words.
Yeah.
He was quoted saying, "This lawsuit is about saying Kalea's life mattered,
Mm-hmm.
and we must do better." That's a powerful statement.
Yeah, it is.
He's framing this as a call to action, a call for a deeper examination of how we protect our kids, especially in those environments where they're supposed to be safe.
Which brings us to the other side of this story,
Mm,
the school's perspective.
right,
And I say story because right now we only have one side.
right.
There's a good chance the school district will present a defense against these claims.
Sure.
That there are details we haven't heard yet that might provide more context
Right.
or shed light on why things unfolded the way they did.
Absolutely. We have to remember that these are still just allegations.
Right.
There's another side to this story that hasn't been fully told yet.
Right. Like, what were the school's actual protocols for medical emergencies?
Mm.
Were there factors beyond their control that might have contributed to that delay in care?
Right.
Was there miscommunication, a breakdown in communication that led to those crucial minutes being lost?
And then there's the question of the legal standard for negligence itself.
Okay.
What constitutes reasonable action in a situation like this?
Right.
What would a reasonable person have done under similar circumstances?
Mm.
That's a question the court will have to grapple with.
It's complicated. There are no easy answers. But regardless of how the legal battle plays out,
Right.
there are some larger issues at play here that we can't ignore.
Right.
This case forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about school safety, about duty of care, about the importance of quick, decisive action when every second counts.
And this is where, for me, this case really hits home.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a student at that school or a parent dropping your kid off that morning, completely unaware of what the day will hold.
Right.
It really makes you think about what more can be done to prevent tragedies like this.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, if something similar were to happen in your community, would you know what to do? It's almost like this one case, this one unimaginable tragedy, it opens up a whole Pandora's box of questions. Like,
Yeah.
how prepared are our schools for these kinds of emergencies, really? And not just schools, but any place where we put our trust in others to keep our kids safe.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about the role of training, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if more staff, not just the school resource officer, had been trained in CPR? What if they'd known how to use an AED? Could those lost minutes have been different? Could the outcome have been different?
Yeah. It's heavy stuff to think about, but it's also a powerful reminder that, we don't have to wait for a tragedy to happen to start asking these questions.
Right.
We can advocate for better emergency preparedness in our own communities.
Right.
We can learn CPR ourselves because, honestly, you just never know when you might be the one who needs to act, to be
Yep.
that person who steps up when every second counts.
Wouldn't that be something? If this deep dive, as heartbreaking as this case is, inspired even one person listening
Yeah.
to take action,
Yeah.
to get trained, and have those difficult conversations about safety and preparedness, that would be a powerful outcome.
It really would. And, it makes you think about the bigger picture, too. This case, with those allegations of a cover-up, it underscores the importance of transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
Because parents, students, they have a right to know that their schools have clear protocols,
Right?
that they're prepared for the unthinkable, and that if something does go wrong, there will be honest answers and a genuine commitment to doing better.
It's about trust, ultimately. Trust between schools and families. Trust in our systems to protect our most vulnerable. And rebuilding that trust, that takes time. Transparency. and a real commitment to learning from these tragic events.
So we started this deep dive with a story, a lawsuit, a lot of unanswered questions. And while we might not have all the answers, and while the legal process still has to play out, what we do have now is a deeper understanding of what's at stake. It's about Kalea's life, yes, but it's also about the lives of every student, every parent, every educator who walks into a school building every day trusting that it's a safe place to learn and to grow. And it's a reminder that we all have a role to play in ensuring that it is.
Well said. This case, it's a stark reminder that life is precious, and that sometimes the most important lessons are the hardest ones to learn. But by facing these difficult questions head-on, by demanding accountability, and by empowering ourselves with knowledge and action, we can honor Kalea's memory and strive to create a world where tragedies like this become unthinkable.